They are the underworld of the AFL, player managers. In the past few seasons, we have learnt more about them than ever and their influence over the entire competition. These men don't just broker deals between their clients and brands, but are central to most trades when trying to get their players to another club. But Code Sports, for the first time ever, went deep into the world of player managers and even did an anonymous survey on all things ranging from the clubs most difficult to deal with and the biggest issues facing the stars of our game. So let's start with the unique part of the AFL when compared to more global sports. The reality is, we have a manager monopoly. The pool of players are under the management of just a handful of management companies. Compare this to the NFL, which has roughly 850 certified agents for 1,800 players, so it's about one agent for every 2 players. TGI Sport in the AFL has over 160 AFL listed players on their books, and Connor Sports, which is the most well-known player firm, has around 150. Combined, that equates to 1/3 of the entire market. That in itself shows how powerful these guys are. One example from the Code Sport investigation revealed this influence from last year's trade period. Scott Gullen tells a great story about last year's trade period where Connor Sports duo Paul Connors and Robbie DeRazio got their hands dirty as the deadline approached. With their client Jake Stringer's move to GWS hitting a snag, it was highlighted to the Bombers, who they also represented, Luke Davis-Uniacke. Any dragging of their feet could cost them any chance of meeting with the upcoming free agent. As Scotty says, the words, "You stuff this up, you're not getting in front of LDU," were heard at Trade HQ. A few minutes later, Stringer was officially a giant. The clubs are intimidated and a little scared because of the monopoly that has been created. But there are still real relationships between the managers and their players. For example, Nick Watson and his agent Nick Geishan knew each other when Watson was just 16 and do have a long-time relationship. Tom Petroro, who is at TGI, handles some of the biggest names such as Marcus Bonampelli, Sam Darcy, Zach Merritt and Matt Rao, and is highly respected in the industry. One of his players said, "He isn't slippery, he doesn't have that used car sales vibe. He plays it well for his client, and his inclination is for his players to stay at their clubs," the client said. Hemisphere Management, Phoenix Management, Corporate Sports in Western Australia and Capital are some of the other major stables in the AFL player market. It's fair to say a lot of these guys are raking in the big bucks. Code Sports revealed from each AFL contract, the agent roughly gets about 4%. $1 million per season deal nets the agent $40,000. Not bad, and when you have 10 or more players under your belt, plus around 20% of all sponsorships and away from the field deals, it is a big payday. One win about the standard practice of a player manager collecting 4% of a club contract is that as the AFL salary cap booms, that 4% booms with it. As one club list veteran opined when asked about the business, if the average player salary nears $500,000, that is $20,000 a year to the manager. In 2025, the salary cap limit at each club was $17.7 million, of which 4% is $708,000. When some stables have more than 150 names, that can be big business. Even if a player departs a firm, which often happens, the original deal brokers still get paid. It happened with Dan Houston, who left Connors Sport for Mercury. Even though Connors got him to Collingwood, they still collect the 4% off his deal. Christian Petrarca did the same thing, and he is now managed by Anna Scully, but Connors Sports gets the 4% off of his long-term deal. But let's get to that survey. Now, it's not clear how many player agents were asked or who, so do keep that in mind when we go through some of the key points. The big takeaway is that there is serious concern for players post-AFL. The responses spoke to concerns about players when they left the game, with life after football and life balance labelled a big issue for players. These included gambling, which 76.5% of those asked said was a problem for players, drug use, which came at 52.9%, and overall life balance and the handling of fame and fortune. When asked if clubs were doing enough to help players get ready for life post-football, 64.7% said no, and 82.4% said not enough was being done to support player welfare, including mental health and concussion education. But it's not all bad. The AFL Players Association is effective according to some of the managers. 58.8% of those surveyed gave the player union a 7 out of 10 score for its overall effectiveness. The biggest and most concerning thing to take away is with concussions. We all know how serious head trauma is, and it has to make the AFL and club doctors nervous when Code Sports revealed that an AFLPA survey of players revealed that 16% of players who experienced concussion in 2024 did not report their symptoms. This was backed up by the managers, revealing 41.2% of them knew of at least one AFL player who had hit a concussion. But the whole survey was not this serious. Here are some bits and pieces about where the managers see the game's money heading and the clubs they least like to deal with. It might be no surprise, but the most difficult AFL club to negotiate with is currently St Kilda, getting 29.4% of votes. Their current list boss is Stephen Silvani, and he has been known to be tough when it comes to trading. Second is surprisingly Port Adelaide, and Collingwood and Essendon sit equal third. The best club to deal with was Geelong, with 23.5% of votes, probably because they get so many deals done each of the trade periods. Player role on field was also noted as the biggest incentive for players to move clubs, with only a touch below a quarter wanting to change for money. While the managers won a mid-season trade period, 82.4% in favour, they did not want to change to the rules to allow players to be traded without their permission, 76.5% against. This is an interesting quote from the story. So managers do see the benefit in mid-year trading, but clearly still want that control and power over the clubs with the feature of player trading consent. Because of this, it's still hard to see the mid-season trading come in if the clubs don't have the ability to instigate the players moving instead of the other way around. And a couple other points come with Sam Darcy, who was voted to be the first $2 million player by 30%, and Harley Reid, who some managers said was worth as low as $450,000 a season to as much as $1.5 million. It's the first time we have got the real thoughts of some of the most influential people in football. With that monopoly only growing, it's hard to see these agents not garnering even more power and money as player wages increase. The reality is, the clubs have to have relationships with them, as dealings in the present will always affect the future.